Well, this is a week later than I wanted it to be, but you can still go watch this movie anyway, I guess. So, let's do it. Bill and Ted Face the Music is the third installment to the eponymous franchise, coming in at a comfortable and totally reasonable 29 years after the release of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey in 1991. Face the Music is directed by Dean Pariseau, who directed Galaxy Quest. So for me, that makes me already love this movie even more than I already did. If you've seen the trailers, you probably already know the main premise of the film. Bill and Ted, after 25 plus years of trying and failing to write the song that will unite the world, are now on a ticking time clock to get it done before the whole of reality is split asunder. As far as plots for a legacy sequel goes, this is one that I was on board with from the get-go. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey are easily two of my favorite films, and the premise of the third one sounded like something that would be right up their alley. And with the trailers showcasing some of the wonderful mishaps and time-bending shenanigans they can get into, I thought I might have the story figured out already. I'm happy to say that while I didn't expect the story that we did get, that's not to say it isn't at least a little predictable. Now, before I get into spoilers, I want to talk about a few things that I liked that aren't necessarily spoilery, because to be perfectly honest, I liked a lot of stuff in this film. First off, we have Bill and Ted themselves, who are once again portrayed by Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves. They blend back into their roles almost perfectly, feeling exactly like how I would expect them to act and behave as 40-some-year-olds. I think Alex Winter fell into the role a little easier than Keanu did, but I think that's mainly because I see Keanu more as John Wick nowadays, more than I do as Ted Theodore Logan. Next, we have Thea and Billy, Bill and Ted's daughters. When they first started talking about this movie coming out, I will admit I was skeptical about the idea of their inclusion out of fear that they might not really contribute much to the plot. But they have a whole arc in this film that is just perfect for them. They fully embody the mindset I would expect of people whose dads are easygoing, procrastinating rockers, and whose moms are princesses from 1490s England. So basically they think Coldplay is the best band ever and probably supported the Brexit. I'm not even sure what I'm really trying to make a joke here. Either way, they are incredibly smart, yet airheaded. They love their dads, and I assume their moms, because that rarely comes up in the film. More on why later. And are just a delight to be included into the film at all. Then there's the story. Now, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure has a fairly typical 80s storyline to it. We watched our titular duo crashing around time in a magical American knockoff TARDIS thanks to George Carlin, collecting historical figures featured in their history book and bringing them to San Dimas, California so that they could pass their world history exam. Pretty low stakes all things considered, and thank goodness these two skipped over the chapter on World War II. Hey Hitler, dude, what do you think of 1989 San Dimas? Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey has the boys dealing with a few more potential problems this time. Like dying. Bill and Ted are getting ready for the Battle of the Bands, but an evil villain in the future sends evil robot versions of them to kill them, take their place, and try to ruin their chances of winning. The real Bill and Ted must now traverse the afterlife, somehow survive hell, beat the Grim Reaper at Battleship who takes them to heaven and will eventually become a bass player in their band, ask a favor from God, work with two dummy thick alien bros who do a horrible version of the Dragon Ball fusion dance to become the ultimate thick boy, and have said alien build them dollar store knockoff robot Bill and Ted's who can just beat them no problem. They have a few other time-related shenanigans, this lady strips into George Carlin, and Kiss is there to close out the show. You know, that classic hero's journey narrative at work. Now, Bill and Ted Face the Music decided, why have only one story when we can have four going all at once? In Face the Music, while attempting to avoid spoilers as best I can, we have Bill and Ted traveling to the future in order to try and get the song that will unite the world from their future selves. Billy and Thea traveling to the past to gather who they believe are the greatest musicians of all time to help their dads in performing said song that will unite the world. Joanna and Elizabeth traveling through time with their future selves. and the great leader of the future attempting to act upon her own interpretation of the great prophecy, directly interfering with Bill and Ted's journey. I can't really say more without getting into some spoilers, so for the sake of those who don't want the film spoiled, and because I have a bunch more I want to just talk about really quick, let's do a bit of a lightning round of some of the other cool stuff in this film, okay? The special effects update to the future, time travel, and the circuits of time look wonderful. The nods to the original films are minimal and only included to either continue running jokes or to service the plot. Some minor retcons to the ending of the second film that help service the plot here, but also feel fairly natural. William Sadler returning as Death. Kristen Schaal as Rufus's daughter and liaison to time Kelly. Fun fact about that, George Carlin's real daughter is named Kelly, and Kristen Schaal's character is named after her. Holland Taylor as the Great Leader. Dave Grohl as himself. And, yeah, without getting into spoilers, that's that. So, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some spoilery stuff now. If you don't want spoilers, if you want to avoid them, skip to the times code that you see on screen now. I mean it, everything past this point is like a serious spoiler for how this film turns out, so skip to this time if you want to avoid that. It's not really imperative if you do. Like, obviously, if you want spoilers now, if you don't really care about it, you can keep watching. But I'm just warning you now, if you don't want spoilers, don't watch from this point on, and skip to the end to hear my final thoughts. Was that enough of a warning? Alright, spoiler time. Now, obviously, I don't really have footage from the film yet, so kind of just bear with me while I talk about some of the stuff. First off, I think it's pretty obvious to most people who watch the movie that Billy and Thea are the ones who would make the song in the end. Once the Great Leader recited the prophecy stating that Preston Logan would unite the world and not Bill and Ted, it was easy to put the pieces together and just figure that out. What I didn't expect was how they were going to pull it off. Instead of them taking guitars and shredding like there's no tomorrow, they can't actually play instruments. To me, it's such an awesome way to show that they mirror Bill and Ted's original journey in some ways. They travel through time, mostly the past, gathering notable historical figures, and rather than put on the most excellent performance possible, they help to lead and coordinate it. I doubt that said performance wouldn't net them a passing grade in world history, but I think uniting all of time and space together is pretty much a good reward in itself. Then there's the changes to the prophecy that the film is based on. Probably the biggest hurdle the film had to get over. By all accounts, the song that Bill and Ted played at the end of Bogus Journey should have achieved their goal. It was viewed around the world, we saw a bunch of people dancing to it, it all seemed like very fun, go happy lucky stuff. But by instead reframing that scene as their rise to fame, rather than it being the song to unite everyone, it gives the film a fun playground of possibilities to work with. Bill and Ted are still trying to unite the world, but now, because it's been 25 years since that was supposed to start happening, they find themselves not only having to unite humanity, but also save the fabric of reality itself. So while Bill and Ted travel through time and try to get the song to save everything, and while Thea and Billy get the band they'll eventually use to make said song, we also have this robot guy sent by the Great Leader to kill Bill and Ted, and then there's the whole thing with the wives. Let's talk about the wives for a moment, actually. And I say a moment because that's all we really get of them in this film. Now, there's some fun little things with them, like how they kept up the tradition of the wives being played by new actresses, but they don't really do much in this movie. I mean, they're integral to Bill and Ted traveling through time, as part of their quest is making sure that the princesses don't leave them. But once Bill and Ted go on their adventure, and then Joanna and Elizabeth go on theirs, the wives just kinda show up every once in a while, and then at the end of the film, their whole arc is just resolved. Now, I know that with everything going on, it's safe to say that this film cut out a few scenes. And in the grand scheme of things, the two more important plot lines involving Bill and Ted doing their stuff and Billy and Thea doing theirs mean that they probably had a lot of priority. But between the plotline involving the wives and the plotline involving the robot, I personally feel that the robot could have been cut out and not much really would have changed. Outside of killing Billy and Thea by mistake, and also Ted's dad by mistake, and Kelly by mistake, yeah, I think the robot just kind of is there to kill a lot of people by mistake, and then does nothing to help move the plot forward except then get Bill and Ted to hell to reunite everyone? Like, after they get to hell, he literally just hangs out. There's a joke about him being named after Kelly's ex-boyfriend, and a bit about how, oh, he can dance. But, like, the rest of it doesn't go anywhere. So, honestly, all of the death in this film, if you still wanted to include the bits about hell and all of that, could have just been handled very differently. Thanks to all the time shenanigans that are happening throughout the film, wouldn't it just have been easier to cut the robot altogether and find some way to kill each of these people through their own plots so they could all get to hell to reunite with death? Or, and this might just be a little bit dark, maybe integrate all of the deaths that are going on into Joanna and Elizabeth's side story? Like, for me, I think they could probably find some pretty funny ways of going about it, killing people. Like maybe the future wives, who are embittered and upset with Bill and Ted, go back in time to try and show their older selves how bad Bill and Ted are, but then out of spite try and kill everyone to prevent their own lives from happening. I don't know. There's a way they could have done it that would have gotten rid of the robot almost entirely, and honestly, it wouldn't really affect much. But, back to the good stuff. And I want to try and keep this video at least a little short, so I'm going to do just another quick little lightning round, okay? Billy, Thea, and Kid Cudi, of all people, discussing theoretical physics and time travel concepts. Missy and Deacon getting married to keep the old running joke about Missy marrying everyone. Keanu Reeves absolutely killing it on the theremin. The song at the end of the movie is pretty damn good, and the concept of Bill and Ted going around infinite timelines to distribute instruments to everyone is silly, and I love it. Plus, little did you know thing. The first two digits of the Infinity phone number is 69. Managed to squeeze one in. Future Bill and Ted's decline was overly silly and yet tragic, watching them deal with their failures in their own way, like Ted drinking and Bill getting violent. Flying up through hell in a SWAT van that somehow also went to hell? Sure, the van was evaporated alongside Ted's dad, but why did a van go to hell? I just don't know. Dave Grohl. Okay, spoiler over. Bill and Ted Face the Music is an utterly fascinating and fantastic film. It's all at once a great continuation of the two films that I still very much enjoy, and is one of the best films that has come out and probably will come out in 2020. It's been so long since I last did one of these simply because, well, the world went to shit. But now, here we are. And just what we needed the most, here comes Bill and Ted to do what they do and save the day. This film just makes me feel so good in a time where it's hard to find something that can really do that, to the point where I had it rented through YouTube for 2 days and watched it 4 times. If you watch no other movie this year, I highly recommend that you make this movie the one you watch. But only if you can do it safely. Rent it off YouTube like I did, and I promise if you are a fan of these films, you will not regret it. And with everything going on, if nothing else, I can't think of anything else to say except for, well, the main ethos that Bill and Ted stand for.
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes!
Thanks for watching.